The glare of flashing cameras, the endless hum of traffic, the relentless glow of neon signs have framed one of the most visible lives in modern popular culture for more than 2 decades. In a world obsessed with continuous updates, constant connectivity, and the instant analysis of every public action, the boundary between a genuine human experience and public entertainment often dissolves completely. Every movement on a busy avenue, every fleeting moment captured through a car window, and every cryptic sentence shared on a digital platform becomes immediate fodder for a global audience that never sleeps. When a public figure spends their entire youth and adult life underneath an intense social microscope, even the simplest choice can instantly turn into a viral sensation, debated by millions of strangers across the globe. The spectacle of modern fame operates like a persistent echo chamber, where context is frequently discarded in favor of immediate sensation, leaving little space for quiet reflection or simple understanding. Before diving deeper into this complex story and exploring how past relationships continue to intersect with present events, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and join our growing community so you never miss an in-depth breakdown of the stories shaping today's culture. The setting for the latest wave of intense global attention was a routine afternoon along the vast, sun-drenched stretches of the iconic 101 freeway running through the Studio City neighborhood of Los Angeles. In a city where luxury vehicles and celebrity sightings are everyday occurrences, a black Mercedes SUV suddenly captured the total attention of nearby drivers and bystanders. As the traffic slowed to a crawl under the warm California sun, a familiar figure stood up inside the vehicle, lifting herself above the frame to peer out through the open moonroof. With the warm summer breeze moving through her hair, she looked out over the sea of stopped cars ahead, taking in the wide expanse of the highway. To a casual observer or anyone who grew up enjoying warm afternoons on open roads, it was a moment of spontaneous lightheartedness, a nostalgic impulse to feel the fresh air and see what was causing the unexpected delay up ahead. Yet, because the person standing up in that moving vehicle was one of the most recognizable pop culture icons in global history, the moment was immediately transformed from a simple action into a major news event. Within hours, photographs and video clips of those brief seconds on the highway were circulating across international news networks and dominating discussion threads online. The reaction to the highway incident highlights the complicated way the modern public consumes celebrity news, where even a 2-second gesture can trigger a flood of wild speculation and conflicting narratives. For some, the visual of someone leaning out of a vehicle on a major freeway seemed concerning, coming just a few months after a separate legal incident involving a traffic stop and a subsequent plea to a reduced charge of reckless driving. For others, particularly those close to the situation, it was nothing more than an innocent, playful act by someone who simply enjoys the feeling of the summer wind, unaware that leaning through a sunroof might violate local traffic safety norms or attract international headlines. The artist herself later addressed the overwhelming reaction on her social media page, pointing out the stark contrast between 2 seconds of spontaneous motion captured by external cameras and the actual reality of her daily life, which remains far more nuanced than any snapshot could ever convey. Her candid response underscored a fundamental truth about modern celebrity culture. The world often judges an entire story based on a single frame, completely oblivious to the hours, days, and personal context that lie just beneath the surface. What makes this recent occurrence so compelling is not merely the event itself, but the unexpected voices that have emerged from the past to offer perspective on it. In the high-stakes arena of global entertainment, long-standing relationships often fracture under the intense pressure of media scrutiny, leaving behind years of legal disputes, public statements, and unresolved tension. Yet, when recent headlines began to generate a new wave of judgment and commentary across digital platforms, a former figure from a particularly chaotic chapter of her past stepped forward with a message that surprised many longtime observers. Rather than joining the chorus of critics or offering unsolicited commentary on her personal state, this former associate issued a direct call for empathy, reminding the public that beyond the stage lights, the records, and the endless headlines lies a human being who has spent virtually her entire life navigating extraordinary pressures. The former manager, whose presence during the turbulent late 2000s remains one of the most discussed periods in modern pop history, publicly argued that compassion is a vastly superior response to public mockery or harsh judgment. This sudden call for grace highlights a broader, Ongoing debate about how society treats public figures during moments of perceived vulnerability or unconventional behavior. For decades, the media landscape thrived on sharp commentary and dramatic narratives, frequently treating the personal trials of famous individuals as a form of spectator sport. Today, while digital platforms offer direct communication between artists and their audiences, they also amplify immediate reactions, creating an environment where millions of people feel entitled to diagnose, criticize, or dissect a person's life based on brief internet clips. The former associate emphasized that social media feeds should never be treated as a medical chart or a definitive legal record, pointing out that strangers online rarely possess the full picture or the background knowledge needed to pass meaningful judgment. His public comments urged the global audience to extend the same understanding and kindness to a world-famous performer that any ordinary person would hope to receive during their own personal moments under scrutiny. As the discussion surrounding the freeway incident continues to evolve, it serves as a powerful entry point into a much larger narrative about survival, public perception, and the lasting impact of extreme fame. The contrast between the intense public scrutiny and the simple explanation provided by those close to her, that she was merely having fun on a warm day and checking the traffic, exposes the massive gap between celebrity image and everyday human reality. Behind the headlines lies a complex history filled with artistic triumphs, legal battles, personal losses, and an enduring struggle for individual autonomy. The story currently unfolding on the streets of Los Angeles and across digital networks is not just about a single moment on a highway. It is the continuation of a decades-long journey of a woman who has consistently captivated the world while attempting to live life on her own terms. As we prepare to look deeper into the history, the key figures involved, and the intricate events that shape this ongoing story, the central question remains whether society can finally learn to view iconic figures through a lens of basic humanity rather than endless spectacle. To truly understand the weight of recent events and why a simple moment on a Los Angeles freeway can instantly ignite an international media storm, one must trace the deep and turbulent history that connects the central figures in this story. The story does not begin with a black SUV on the 101 freeway, nor does it begin with recent legal proceedings. Its roots lie in the chaotic late 2000s, a period that permanently altered the landscape of modern celebrity journalism and forever reshaped the personal life of one of the world's greatest pop icons. During that era, the intense intersection of paparazzi culture, tabloid media, and sudden personal upheaval created a volatile environment around the singer. Following her highly publicized divorce from Kevin Federline, her personal life became subject to round-the-clock surveillance by dozens of photojournalists who followed her every move through the streets of Southern California. It was during this period of extreme vulnerability and constant pressure that Sam Lutfi entered her life, quickly transitioning from an acquaintance into her primary manager and constant companion. The period between late 2007 and early 2008 remains one of the most intensely documented and fiercely debated chapters in entertainment history. As Lutfi assumed a central role in managing her daily schedule, communications, and public appearances, tensions between him and the singer's family began to escalate rapidly. Her family members expressed deep concerns regarding his influence, alleging that he was isolating her from her longtime support network and exercising control over her affairs during a time of severe personal crisis. Lutfi, on the other hand, maintained that he had stepped in at her explicit request, attempting to help her navigate an overwhelming period when she felt abandoned and lacked a reliable support system. The escalating conflict reached a dramatic climax in early 2008, when her family successfully obtained emergency legal orders to remove Lutfi from her presence, setting into motion the legal mechanisms that ultimately resulted in the establishment of a strict court-ordered conservatorship that would govern her life, finances, and personal decisions for the next 13 years. The legal fallout from those tumultuous months extended far beyond the immediate establishment of the conservatorship, initiating a series of complex court battles that spanned more than a decade. In 2009, Lutfi filed a major civil lawsuit against the singer's family, alleging defamation, breach of contract, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, claiming that public statements made about his character had severely damaged his reputation and livelihood. That litigation dragged through the court system for 7 long years before finally being settled out of court in late 2016. However, the legal boundaries separating them were reinstated in June 2019, when the pop star successfully obtained a civil harassment restraining order against Lutfi, prohibiting him from contacting her or her family members. The legal documents filed in support of the restraining order accused him of sending threatening communications and attempting to destabilize her life during a delicate transitional period. For years, Lutfi remained a controversial figure in the public eye, widely viewed as a symbol of the chaotic era that preceded the loss of her personal autonomy, despite the history of legal restraining orders, public disputes, and intense media scrutiny. The dynamic between public memory and private reality shifted as time passed. In recent years, Lutfi has occasionally re-emerged in the media space to offer his own retrospective on those landmark events. During a public statement in mid-2021, while the global movement to end her conservatorship was reaching its peak, Lutfi publicly expressed regret, stating that he felt he had failed in his duty to protect her during his brief tenure as manager. Later, during a detailed appearance on a popular podcast, he reflected warmly on their time together, describing her as an extraordinarily talented artist and a fantastic friend. He maintained that his original intentions were grounded in a genuine desire to assist someone who was going through a painful separation and struggling under the weight of global fame, insisting that he never anticipated how deep or complicated the situation would become. This intricate backstory explains why Lutfi's recent comments to the press carried such significant weight and sparked widespread interest. Seeing him step forward not to stir controversy or capitalize on fresh headlines, but to advocate for compassion and privacy, represents a dramatic shift from the adversarial tone of past legal battles. When addressing the recent traffic incident, Lutfi emphasized that after spending decades living under an intense global microscope, the artist deserves the same basic grace, understanding, and respect that any ordinary person would expect from society. His declaration that she is a human being first and a celebrity second cuts to the heart of the ongoing cultural conversation regarding how public figures are treated by both traditional media outlets and modern online communities. By reminding the public that social media posts do not equate to a medical evaluation or an accurate summary of a person's life, he directly challenged the modern impulse to rush to harsh judgment based on brief, isolated clips. The tension surrounding her current life is further heightened by the series of recent events that led up to the freeway incident. Just 4 months prior to the afternoon in Studio City, the singer had been involved in a late-night traffic stop that resulted in her arrest under suspicion of driving under the influence. A case that ultimately concluded with her pleading guilty to a reduced charge of reckless driving. That legal setback had already placed her under heightened observation by the public and media outlets eager for updates on her well-being. Consequently, when images surfaced of her standing through the moonroof of a moving SUV on the 101 freeway, critics and commentators were quick to connect the two events, painting a narrative of ongoing instability and risky behavior. The speed with which these interpretations spread across digital platforms demonstrated how easily a narrative can take hold when a famous individual's past is continuously used to interpret their present actions. However, the perspective offered by those closest to her paints a fundamentally different picture of what actually occurred on the highway that afternoon. According to statements from an insider familiar with the situation, the act of standing up through the moonroof was neither a cry for help nor a sign of reckless behavior, but rather a simple, innocent reaction to being stuck in heavy Southern California traffic. The source explained that as the line of vehicles came to a complete halt on the freeway, she simply wanted to look ahead to see what was causing the delay. Growing up in the American South, she had always enjoyed the simple pleasure of feeling the warm summer air while riding in a car, an activity she associated with freedom, relaxation, and simple fun. Unaware that leaning out of a sunroof might be viewed as a traffic violation or cause widespread alarm, she was simply enjoying a bright summer day. Completely oblivious to the massive media reaction her spontaneous action would trigger, the stark contrast between these two interpretations, a concerning cry for attention versus an innocent moment of summer fun, highlights the extreme tension that defines her daily existence. Every action she takes is immediately processed through two vastly different lenses: the protective, sometimes judgmental lens of a public that remembers her past struggles, and the personal lens of an individual who is simply trying to live freely after spending 13 years under strict institutional control. Her own response to the event on social media underscored this exact frustration. By pointing out that the public was obsessing over 2 seconds of spontaneous movement while remaining completely blind to the reality of her daily life, she called out the absurdity of being constantly judged by snapshot moments. As this complex narrative continues to unfold, it becomes increasingly clear that the true story lies not in the fleeting images captured by onlookers, but in the ongoing struggle to reconcile a legendary public persona with the basic human right to live without perpetual judgment. To truly appreciate why these recent events resonate so deeply across global culture, one must understand the unprecedented journey of Britney Spears and how her life transformed the very nature of modern stardom. Emerging from a small town in Louisiana, her meteoric rise in the late 1990s redefined pop music, creating a global phenomenon that inspired millions of fans and set new benchmarks for commercial success. Her exceptional talent, magnetic stage presence, and iconic music videos established her as one of the defining cultural figures of her generation, earning her numerous accolades, including a Grammy Award and a permanent place in music history. However, with that extraordinary level of international success came an overwhelming level of public interest that quickly eroded any possibility of a normal private life. Long before the era of smartphones and social media algorithms, she became the prime target of a burgeoning, hyper-aggressive paparazzi industry that monetized every detail of her daily existence, creating a relentless dynamic where her personal struggles were broadcast in real time to millions around the world. The long-term impact of that intense visibility became painfully clear during the late 2000s, leading to the court-ordered conservatorship that stripped her of fundamental personal and financial autonomy for more than 13 years. Under that legal framework, virtually every aspect of her life, from her career schedule and financial assets to her personal relationships and daily routine, was controlled by others. For over a decade, she continued to perform on world stages, release hit albums, and hold record-breaking concert residencies, all while living under constraints that few adults could ever imagine. When details of her actual living conditions and her passionate plea for freedom finally reached a Los Angeles courtroom in the summer of 2021, it triggered a massive cultural reckoning. The global movement that rallied to her support brought together fan activists, legal scholars, and casual observers in a unified call for fundamental human rights, eventually leading to the complete termination of the legal arrangement in late 2021. The end of the legal arrangement marked the beginning of a brand new, unscripted chapter in her life, filled with both immense liberation and complex personal adjustments. For the first time in well over a decade, she gained the legal right to manage her own finances, make her own medical choices, travel freely, and speak directly to the world without approval from managers or legal guardians. Her best-selling memoir, published to critical acclaim, allowed her to tell her own story in her own words, shedding light on the quiet resilience that carried her through years of strict institutional oversight. Yet, as she stepped back into total independence, she discovered that the global media apparatus and the public's insatiable appetite for updates had not vanished. Transitioning from years of strict confinement to complete personal freedom naturally involves a learning curve, especially when every minor decision, every social media post, and every drive down a California highway remains subject to intense international commentary. This ongoing adjustment helps explain why an apparently trivial incident on the 101 freeway carries such profound symbolic meaning. For a person who spent 13 years restricted from making basic choices, including driving a vehicle or opening a window without permission, standing up through a moonroof on a warm summer afternoon is not a symptom of crisis, but rather a pure, exuberant expression of personal freedom. The desire to feel the warm wind, look over a line of traffic, and enjoy a simple moment of spontaneous fun is a completely normal human impulse. When viewed through the lens of her personal history, that brief moment on the highway becomes a vivid reminder of her resilience and her determination to experience life on her own terms, unfettered by the rigid expectations of outside observers. Those close to her emphasize that she is currently enjoying a happy, peaceful summer, navigating life with a renewed sense of joy and self-discovery. The evolution of Sam Lutfi's perspective over the span of nearly 2 decades adds another compelling layer of depth to this narrative. Once viewed as a central figure during her most turbulent era, Lutfi's public reflections reveal how time and distance can alter one's understanding of past conflicts. His recent willingness to step forward, not to defend himself or stir up old controversies, but to urge the public to extend grace and compassion to his former client, reflects a growing awareness of the toxic pressures generated by fame. His acknowledgement that he failed to protect her during his time as manager, combined with his recent statements defending her right to privacy, highlights how drastically the conversation around celebrity well-being has shifted. His comments serve as a mirror to society, challenging the public to abandon the sensationalized judgment of the past in favor of a more empathetic, humanistic approach to public figures. Ultimately, the story unfolding around the pop icon is far larger than a brief video clip captured on a Los Angeles freeway, or the comments of a former manager reflecting on the past. It is a defining story about human dignity, the pursuit of self-determination, and the gradual evolution of popular culture. For decades, society treated the personal lives of famous women as public property, prioritizing entertainment over empathy. Today, as public awareness around mental health, personal boundaries, and basic human rights continues to expand, there is a growing consensus that everyone deserves the space to live, make mistakes, heal, and express themselves without constant public prosecution. The global audience is slowly learning that behind the iconic music, the dazzling stage performances, and the sensational headlines is a human being who has endured extraordinary challenges and earned the right to exist in peace. As this remarkable artist continues her journey toward complete personal autonomy, her story stands as a powerful testament to the enduring human spirit. Whether she is sharing her thoughts directly with fans on social media, writing about her past experiences, or simply enjoying the warm California breeze through an open sunroof, she remains an undeniable symbol of resilience and freedom. The primary lesson from this ongoing narrative is not found in the superficial details of a single traffic delay, but in the collective responsibility of the public to treat famous individuals with the same decency, grace, and compassion that we would offer to anyone in our own lives. By shifting our collective response from harsh judgment to genuine understanding, we allow inspirational figures the space to fully embrace their lives, write their own futures, and move forward on their own terms.